pause, and then Kurt starts.
Thanks, Matt.
Welcome to the 2021 team preview for London Spitfire.
He's so good at following instructions, isn't
well
he?
done, Matt.
What?
Well done.
Kurt said countdown, say quick pause, and then
I
start.
didn't say quick pause.
A company man.
Oh, he's a genius.
I just say whatever I'm told.
Just following orders, boss.
Yeah.
Welcome to the London Spitfire preview, where we're going to be reviewing the London Spitfire for the 2021 OWL season. A promising young team that have been around, at least the core of this team, for quite some time. The core being the tank and support line, where you've got 80.
Hades. Wow, that's a new way to pronounce his name. I like that one.
I always want to pronounce it Hades.
Hades, like Hades.
Yeah, because I've been playing Hades so much, but it's not even spelled the same way. It's Hattie.
No.
Hattie, Molfig, you got Calyx, and then Reaper as your kind of like core that have moved over from the British Hurricane. Something funny, gents?
I've recently heard.
I just like how you were just like, oh yeah, know these guys for a long time. The first guy, you just fucked his name up.
I never said I've known them for a long time.
Yeah, Hades, Joe.
I only watch contenders when the players come into the Overwatch League.
That makes sense. Then you're not wasting your time. I saw one of the casters recently from the Overwatch League call Molfig Molf 1G.
What?
No, who did?
Yeah, seriously. Someone was asking him questions. I'm not gonna out anybody. But they said Molf 1G, and I was like, bro, that sounds so fucking cool.
Molf 1G?
Yeah, like he's a Summit fan.
He's a Summit fan.
Yeah. But this team's been around for. I actually don't know how long they've been around, but it's been like over a year of domination in the EU contenders scene as British Hurricane.
And it's interesting because this is, we've previously said that the Pirates Eternal is like a love letter to EU Overwatch. In this case, this is an interesting experiment, I'd say, because teams have taken the best teams in Korean contenders and put them into the Overwatch League and had very good success. And this is going to be almost like an indication for us as to how well it's going to be working from another region. And typically, I think the overall community consensus has always been that EU is underrated in Overwatch and has been the entirety of its existence, despite the fact that players always, the talent kind of just got drained out of it over time, and it still does to this day. But this is an example of where you've got essentially a core team that was very, very successful, and you've plugged in some very nice DPS players in the form of Sparker, Hybrid, Blase, Shax as well. What an insane pickup. The Shax is as well for this team as well. I think that was the recent acquisition on the 8th of February, I think.
Sure.
I don't know. But yeah.
I believe it. Yes. I believe it.
It's this team, looking at the pieces, I think the one thing that's going to carry it really far, and that we actually saw in this tournament, in the Steel Series tournament, is its coordination, the fact that they've played together for a long time. They've got a lot of teamwork, which is something that they're going to have a major advantage over a lot of other teams, I think, near that bottom and mid-table sort of section. Presumably this team aiming for the mid-table. That's the advantage they're going to have coming into this. And if that can be elevated even further with the good DPS players that are going to be coming alongside them, then you've got a real promising team on your hands.
And I like how Nuki has set expectations for this team, like before it was even kind of built or announced, right? It's like, hey, we're not expecting to be like top 4, right? But we're expecting to be competitive. And like you said, Bren, try and aim for like that middle to high middle pack, right? Potentially, you play a little bit better than that. You can maybe sneak into like a top 6, let's say. I like how they have a core that's played together. It's kind of unfortunate that Sparker is going to be inactive because of age for, I believe, a lot of the season. I think it's like, or what? No, I think he turns, I'm thinking the seasons of old, where the season starts in like February, but like, in June, I think he turns of age. So they actually will get
short
him.
Season. So he's still missing for the first third of the season or something like that. So they are still missing him for quite a bit, but he's a good player.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, go on.
No, go Josh.
Well, to me, you have to start with the London Spitfire of like what the organization is up to this year, because they started season 1 with a super team. They, in fact, not just one super team, they bought 2 super teams. They were going like hard for Overwatch League, Cloud9 as an organization when they made London Spitfire. They combined the Kongdu Panthera and the GC Busan rosters, shoved them together and tried to make a championship team out of it, and actually succeeded the first year around after a fantastic playoff run. But they said like the parent org seems to have cooled off the Overwatch League a bit, kind of pulled back a little bit in terms of their resources and their involvement. It's now another organization that's running the London Spitfire spot. And instead, they've gone heavily into something that was always a criticism of London, which was, where are the people lads from London? It's like,
there's not many people lads in this team.
There aren't many people lads, but there are at least people friends from across the aisle.
Sure, yeah.
People friends.
Okay.
from across the British channel. At least there's the English channel, I suppose, or the French sleeve. I can't remember what the French call it. I don't know what the French call that.
Oh my god! You want to
French River? The French River, yeah.
They don't call it the French River.
It's a big river.
That's La Seine. Anyway, they've really focused in on making this team like the pride of Europe. It's unfortunate that Paris has also come along and tried to steal that title from them, so now they're literally competing in the only season where they've given a shit.
Is it unfortunate?
Talent. I don't know, kind of, a little bit for their identity as a team.
I think it adds a nice rivalry.
It's definitely going to be a good rivalry, yeah.
Which is, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not forced, you know?
No, it's
Whereas
not.
Whereas previously it felt a little bit artificial.
Sure, because neither of the teams, I mean, if you consider last year where Paris was majority Korean as well, they definitely didn't feel like a natural European representatives. But that to me is like part of the expectations that Nookie set as well, is this team is supposed to be representing the best that Europe has to offer. And that doesn't mean some kind of European super team. It actually means like a genuine, this is a European contenders team that has been dominant recently. They have all of that teamwork. They have proven success. But that comes along with it, but perhaps less potential than if you had made some, cooked up your own version of the roster. And the last time Europe had a wholesale team that was ported over from contenders or like the tier 2 level into Overwatch League was what? Misfits?
Mayhem? Yeah. The original Mayhem. Yeah.
Yeah. The original Zebasai and Zuppe and Swoosh Mayhem, I think. So they've got some... what's the phrase? It's not big shoes to fill. They've got a reputation to fix, almost.
They're pretty small shoes. They're like size 6.
Yeah, and they've got to try and slip them on their wee little booties. And... so I think that's put London in a very interesting position this year. They have a lot of challenges ahead of them. The high ping they're going to be playing on, the fact that they might really struggle to get to Hawaii if they even manage to qualify for any of the stage playoffs, because their players are from Europe, and I don't know what the travel looks like. It's not exactly the same as just being in North America, especially with somebody like Hybrid from the UK, for example, because it's barred a lot of travel from the UK, at least at the moment.
Yeah. Actually, to add on to that point, if the entire purpose of them going to Hawaii is the kind of implication is that the team would be based in North America, so they would already be there and they could travel to Hawaii because they wouldn't need a visa.
Yeah.
But if you would need to get a visa anyway, why not just go straight to Korea?
Because everyone else is going to Hawaii?
Yeah.
But everyone's not going to Hawaii.
There's 4 teams from the US going to Hawaii.
Would they have to go to Hawaii?
No, there's 2.
Oh, you mean... Oh, is there 2? Oh, sorry.
Would they have to go to Hawaii because they're playing on it's like the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference come together, right?
Yeah.
And they play in the tournament system. But they could go to Korea.
What, in theory? Well, yeah,
in theory, they could.
In theory,
if the visas were easier, they could go to Korea.
I guess, but I don't know whether that's even like a feasible solution, and it's not even a problem that we know whether it's even going to exist for when it happens. But yeah, I suppose that could be something for them. But what I kind of mean with all of this is that London Spitfire have got a challenging season ahead of them. They're no longer big fish in a small pond. They're very much small fish in a big pond who have a competitive disadvantage because their water is delayed or whatever. I don't know where the analogy really goes when
Delayed?
it comes to ping.
Water is delayed.
I mean, that just made it sound like I was talking about a pregnant woman.
Yes.
But I was trying to find some way of tying the ping into the fish analogy, but it didn't particularly work.
Fish?
When did you make a fish analogy?
Fish?
Leave it. I was saying big fish in a small pond.
Oh,
That's what they were in Contenders, and now they're very
The
much.
slowest salmon
the
gets
opposite.
ate by the bear.
No, they don't. The probably the one that jumps the highest gets eaten by the bear because it's easier to catch.
You know nothing.
The hoppiest salmon gets eaten by the bear.
Wait,
think-
the bear just takes salmon out of the air? Don't
Oh,
they
yeah.
like dive?
Yeah,
Or,
they
like,
do.
Salmon,
Dude, they
salmon
fucking-
swim
yeah.
upstream. Salmon try and swim upstream and jump up like dams and
Like
ridges and
dolphins.
waterfalls to plant their eggs at the top of the river so that they can flow down the river again. Freshwater salmon.
Salmon's kind of crazy.
Salmon are metal. And bears just
And the
pluck them out
bears
of the
just
air
fucking
and rip their faces
lightning
off.
reef. Yeah, they just,
Well, they just-
rip them out.
Well,
and they just
I still think
tear
that
'em
would
up.
apply to the slowest salmon.
The slowest salmon would be still in the sea, mate. It'd be getting dragged back by the current.
No, because
No, bears are eating that. Maybe sharks
the
are eating the
slowest
slow
salmon won't be able to get. It'll be
Why do you say
Sharks?
You think
sharks
sharks
eat the
are
slowest
wasting their
salmon?
time with salmon?
Hmm?
Sharks are eating big shit. Sharks aren't eating salmon. They're eating big things. They're eating like people.
There's some small sharks out there. Little dog sharks. They're only small.
How small? Like
I don't
that
know, like
small?
that big, maybe? I don't know. Dog shark?
That's
maybe
not that small, bro.
I mean,
You
that's,
saw-
that's
Bigger than a salmon.
Bro,
that
a shark with a
could
mouth.
comfortably eat a salmon.
Jaws is the shark expert.
Salmon's pretty big, man.
Yeah,
A
salmon's
salmon,
pretty big.
If you got
Yeah.
hit in the face with a salmon, you'd get fucked up.
Look at a little
That's
baby
can't eat a
shark.
salmon.
That's a shark?
Yeah.
Oh,
not
I
gonna
could
eat a
fuck that
person, is
shark
it?
up.
It might eat you, Matt, but it's not going to eat anyone else.
No. I would dominate that shark. I'd just what you do? Would punch him in the nose, right? Just
I like how you're
bop him real
bragging
quick.
about beating this shark up.
Yeah.
I want to get back on track with the London Spitfire
yeah.
by explaining
yeah.
what I like with this team. I can't remember what the hell you were saying. You were trying to find analogies for
He
something.
said there
yeah.
were sharks in a river.
But the aspect
Can,
I like most about the London Spitfire is that you've got your core of the tank line and support line that's already pre-existing, the synergy's built, and they're playing with DPS players that are fantastic, I think. Shax, we all know what Shax has been capable of from the previous seasons. I mean, the guy pretty much, alongside KSP, I rate KSP very highly, Kai, as he wants to be known as these days. But I think him and Shax in particular was really integral towards a lot of the success of the Valiant. I'm glad he's on this team, but also you've got these new additions like Hybrid, who are still untested, but there's again a lot of hype going behind this guy, and he is the sole peepo lad of this team.
He is.
As a kind of like flex DPS player, there's a ton of hype going in off the back of this guy, and the kind of expectations, I wouldn't say they're high because the expectations of this entire team are, I think, quite tempered. They've done, like you said, they've done a good job at setting them at a reasonable place. But I'm excited
I think
to see what Hybrid's going to be able to do against some hotter competition, because he's typically been on some sort of, on lower level teams in Contenders itself. And then that's not even getting into the fact that they've got Blase as well as Sparko, who's not even available yet. They've got so much depth in their DPS line, which has always been one of the things that has held teams back with hero pools and new metas to develop. But it seems like teams aren't really taking risks these days. They are picking up big, massive selections of DPS players so that they're ready for any sort of meta, which is exciting. It seems like London have really thought about how they've built this team and future-proofed it for the season.
Well, I think, I look at this team as like a future, right? It's like, for me, this is like a 2-year like build up with this team, right? Like, we know what they've done in Contenders. We've seen some of these players in the Overwatch League, obviously.
Sorry, Hybrid Hybrid most recently has played Hitscan, but I was thinking he's a flex player because he's played Echo.
With Kellex and Blase, we've seen them in the Overwatch League. Ripa with the Gladiators is like a backup, obviously Shax as well. But like getting the tank line and some of the new DPS players accustomed to like Overwatch League play. But I think also it's important to give them a window, right? Like you have this year, these players are like young from Contenders. They want to grind. You give them next year as well, like moving forward, right? Hopefully, the situation with everything clears up. We can get these players like in a more like LAN environment, right? You can get everybody close together. We can really see what they're made out of then, right? I feel like this is like a 2-year project with this team. And then maybe next year you add some more players that come out of Europe.
I don't really agree with that. I think
Why?
that's the difference between Paris and London, where Paris I look at, it's like, okay, you scouted all this talent, you're trying to put a team together, and here's your like V 1.0. Like, here's your first version of the team that you've been trying out in Europe, and then you'll improve on that iteration, see what goes right and wrong. London Spitfire, like, I don't even like comparing them to Paris Eternal, because this is, to me, this is a full-fledged team now. Like, they have a brand for themselves. Like, it actually feels like a team, and they play like a team. They have that chemistry ready to go. And, like, you can see them play. Like, they're not trying to... Obviously, they have some new players, but they figured most of their chemistry out already, and they actually play like a team. So, yeah, I mean, all teams could probably improve, like, one or two players, and make new iterations, etc. But to me... given their experience in contenders already as a roster for quite some time now, I wouldn't say like pressure's on to like win now. I'm not saying that. But I do think that you can look at this team and be like, this is a team to be reckoned with, because they played together for some time now. They nailed down the chemistry. They know their strengths and weaknesses, and they have most of the things in the playbook figured out. So I think that's where it differs from Paris Eternal, where I'm way more lenient on Paris, because I'm like, okay, well, you have to figure out what your playstyle is, like what the identity is of all the staff and personnel, and like what you're going to do with this organization, like brand-wise and philosophy-wise. But I feel like London Spitfire, for the most part, have that figured out, and I think that really shows when they play. And so I'm not quite as lenient on this team, I guess. Like I wouldn't say there's a ton of pressure to win now, but I do view this team differently from some of the other teams that are building or like rebuilding their entire roster at this point. I don't know if you guys agree.
I don't really want to. I think both could be options for next year, whether they move a couple of pieces around or try and retool or whatever. I don't want to try and speculate about what C9 or the team that's the organization that's actually running London Spitfire, what they're called, XL Esports or whatever, are gonna do with London, because they are a team right now that has the potential to be decent in the league. And so for this year, what I think is particularly important is that they're probably not going to improve as much as other teams. All of that synergy has been figured out. They've already got their core in place. The additions that people like Shax are going to add are going to be, they're going to take a small amount of time to integrate. Whereas other teams like Boston and like Paris are going to look shaky at the moment, but they're going to improve over time. London are coming out the gates firing. They look way better than Paris and London in terms of, Paris and Boston in terms of their team play. Way better. And the London Spitfire are able to react really quickly. They've got good protocols in place. They know what comps they want to be running. They're all helping each other. They're really, really reactive with what they're doing on the map. But this is probably, I don't know, they're not going to make astronomical improvements from here because they already have all of that stuff pretty much nailed down, and it comes from playing for over a year and a half in contenders. So the ceiling for improvement is less, I think. So for London, I think there is a bit of a ticking clock to get the wins early on in the season, and then put a heavy emphasis on trying to stay ahead. They're gonna naturally be ahead at the beginning of the season of some of these other teams, like probably Vancouver, Paris, Boston, maybe some of like Houston, or maybe even Toronto, like those kind of teams. I'm probably forgetting a couple as well. I can't exactly remember who's around that level in North America. They're going to be naturally...
Atlanta.
Sure, they might even be ahead of Atlanta, though Atlanta have been playing as a solid team for as long as they have. But they're going to be playing with more team coordination at the beginning. But once these other teams get their shit together and start really figuring out how they want to play, they're going to have a pretty significant rise in their play. Whereas London Spitfire, I don't see that same growth potential. They're a really good team right now at the moment. They look like a very solid roster. I was incredibly impressed with what I saw in their recent showing in the Steel Series tournament. But I think they're really going to be challenged this year to stay ahead. It's a totally different challenge to just dominate a region where everyone's playing catch up to you, to staying ahead of teams that have been built for the sole purpose of getting ahead of you.
Talking to
Just talking to
Chelsea.
Chels, sorry.
I do like what you're saying though. I guess what you're trying to get at is that, and I think you're correct that it's like easier, like when you're improving as a team, the initial batch, like figuring out the chemistry, like the compositions, how you're reacting with compositions, like that, the protocols, that's the easiest part to figure out. And I'm not saying that it is easy, because some teams don't even figure that out, but like that is like covering the basics.
And it has
that takes a while.
Has the fastest improvement as well. It makes you go up a lot.
But how do you go from top 5 team, like how do you go from Florida Mayhem of last year to like Philly Fusion or San Francisco Shock, it might seem like a small step up, but the devil is in the details, and that's the hardest gap to close, because the level of play is so precise and so perfect that it's really hard to nail it down. So I guess that's what you're hitting at, and I agree with you.
And also that London's never really been tested before in that kind of way. Like the London Spitfire team, this British Hurricane team, has never actually been pushed by an opponent, at least while they've had this roster together, to get better in that sense. So I think this is going to be a totally new challenge for them. I'm not convinced that they won't be up to the task. I'm not saying that. But it is going to be a different challenge for them this season compared to stuff that they've had to do before.
I see a lot of similarities between this team right now and the Valiant, I think, in terms of the way the team is structured. Because you've got some players who, the Valiant of last year, they weren't flashy.
Yeah,
I'm
laughing because Valiant of this year, mod check.
Yeah, I was like, that is the Valiant of last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the Valiant of last year. But if you look at the support line and the tank line of that team, it's kind of it's barely punching. I mean, when you look at it on paper, but what really made them good was the teamwork and the fundamentals that they had built up. It was really quite fun to watch that team. I think the fact that they were really getting the most out of those players, despite that some of them, sometimes it was just a skill difference. But they also had really good showings from the explosive power from their DPS. And that's where the real potential of this team is going to be unlocked here. Well, you've already got Shax. You know that this guy is going to be absolutely pumping in any sort of Tracer meta. The other players, the other DPS players, if you get one of them stepping up on a comfort role, I don't know. I don't think
Blaze's May actually looked really good in this tournament.
Sure.
And Blaze, we know, also has an exceptionally good Doomfist.
I don't think you're going to see Doomfist being played because they'll be always playing on ping.
Well, because they're on high ping. True. Yeah,
which is unfortunate. It kind of takes a hero.
Well, Blaze is probably in the States,
but he'll still be playing on minimum ping.
Yeah,
but it won't be.
It'll still be 90, which is like unplayable for Doom. It's really hard. You need low ping for Doom. But to round off my point,
okay.
I see potential with the DPS line in like hybrid. If hybrid comes up, like it's like as a diamond in the rough, which there's a lot of hype going in and behind this guy. You could have like a similar situation to kind of like KSP Kai coming up alongside Shax. Like there's certain metas.
That's a lot of weight to put on that guy's shoulders, though. KSP's a really like. See, I think we forget how unique that guy was.
Oh, KSP is
coming up.
Nasty. He's a nasty good player.
He led the league in elims last year. He was just fantastic.
I mean, people really underrate Kai as a player. Actually, I saw a couple of comments from people being like, they didn't hold KSP in the same vein as they did other outlier hit scan players when they should be. I mean, the guy statistically was leading so much when the team wasn't even winning sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, he should be in any conversation where you're talking about like Carpe or DM or Ans or whatever. Like you should be talking about
Completely
KSP
agree.
from last
but,
year.
Okay, so maybe that's too much pressure to put on hybrid shoulders. But we know that there are metas where you could see success with this team purely from the DPS aspect. And that is enough sometimes to elevate a team in a specific meta. You get a good hero pool going, they can really make a run for it. And if they take a couple of the maps away in a significant portion of a shorter season, you can start to see something coming together with this team. I'm pretty hyped for this roster. I can see the potential. I can see it.
Yeah, I'm bullish on this team as well. But I think it'd be I don't want people's expectation just to be on the DPS carrying them across the finish line, because I do think that it's a very well-rounded team, and that's part of why I'm so optimistic about them. Because the tank line, looks really good. I'd arguably say that the tank line coming from contenders was the most hyped division of this team, because people really praised Hardy and Molfig and their performances in contenders. And I also think that Reaper and Kellex, like, I think that they're good as well. So I think it's a very well-rounded team. I would say breaking into top 5 in NA is a very tough challenge. But I do think that they could do it. I think that they have the potential, and if they improve and practice well enough, I do think that they could break into the top 5. I'm not going to dismiss that. That's how high I think I'm thinking of this team. And obviously, that's tough. That might not happen, but I think that they could do it. They have the potential.
What do you view as like a successful season for this team? Like, I think if they were to make like a playoff in a stage, which is like top 6, and then be competitive in the other ones, I think that's a pretty good year.
Top 6, 7 NA, I think I'd consider.
Yeah, I think a good metric is using the tournaments, Matt, like you're saying.
Yeah.
If you can make it into 1, 2 of those, even if you're the 6th seed, and prove that you're kind of hanging with the big dogs, that's good. That's a really good season for London, I think. Especially because they're going to have to, the top end of North America is really top heavy. Like, there's a lot of teams that are trying to vie for those same spots. For me, when I look at the roster, though, I think I agree with Jonathan in that I have the most faith in Hadi and Molfig out of any kind of pairing on this team, because I think hybrid is a real unknown for me. I'm not really buying the hype yet, but I'm happy to buy it once it starts to rise. So, once everyone else sees, once we see in a match that he's really got it, I'll be there on the ground floor, but I won't
Josh bought GameStop for 300 and sold it for 303. That was Josh.
Yeah, that's what
on
I'm
the
up to.
rise. Yeah.
That's what I'm going for with hybrid. I'm not getting in on the ground floor. It's too risky. But I could definitely see when Sparker's available, like any kind of duo where you can get Sparker and Shax playing together. Lord, that is you are potentially getting a lot of power out of your DPS there. But when I watch Hadi and Molfig, they're the backbone of this team. They are what dictates the pace, the flow, how they move around the map. Hadi's so good on the Reinhardt from what he showed in this tournament and from the VODs that I've watched as well, of being able to be aware of all of the threats that are around him, playing very instinctively whilst not being able to get carried away. I love all of that aspect. Molfig's really stable alongside him as well. And both of them have a depth to their hero pools where it's not like any one hero really stands head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to their tank gameplay. Especially Hadi. I love how well-rounded he is as a tank. Coming out of European contenders, a lot of the European players that you could think about that are European... Yeah, I mean, they're just Reinhardts. They're just actually... They're just Reinhardts. And that's happened for so long. Whereas Hadi's ball is up there at the same level as of his Ryan, I think. And I think his Monkey's pretty decent as well. And he showcased both of those. Actually, maybe he didn't show the ball. But he showed the Winston a little bit throughout this tournament. The other aspect that I want to push on, though, is that during this tournament, and a lot of the success that I've seen from the British Hurricane, has been where their supports don't have to do the heavy lifting for this team. And I see that as a weakness, potentially. For if we end up getting some, like, Zen Bap backlines or something where your tanks are more like playing disruption and your DPS are peppering or something, or they're playing, I don't know, like, I'm not really sure, but like the kind of compositions maybe where you're playing like Mercy Zen and you're trying to really hardcore pocket Reaper and you want big value out of him. I'm not sure what you're going to get out of Reaper and Kellex in terms of league average or above the rest. I think your DPS can get above league average maybe if you have the right combination and the right meta. I think your tanks can be above league average, maybe even consistently with Hadi and Molfig. The supports, I think, are going to be pretty consistently below league average, not in terms of their coordination with the team. I think that's always going to be excellent. When they're playing stuff like they played a lot of Moira Lucio this tournament. In the Steel Series tournament that we just watched, ton of Moira Lucio. That is just perfect for London. All about team coordination, all about the strategy and how you're synced up with the rest of your squad. Not much about like carrying the weight of the team and putting out a lot of damage from the back. I don't think Reaper's like Khan. I don't think he's just a turret that you're going to aim at your opposition and frag them out. I think in those kind of metas, London might really struggle.
I love now when we have two European teams that we have this like narrative and the storylines between them. Because like, just imagine after the season or something, where you have like the contender Paris Eternal, and you have like the bigger team like London Spitfire, the British Hurricane, revered European contenders team, and now the London Spitfire, and then you have like a transaction, like what if Khan goes to London Spitfire? Like it's just like those kind of storylines. I'm ready for it, dude. The competition between these two franchises, the storylines and the narratives, the battle for the best European team, like I'm gonna love this. I'm really going to love this. And it, I'm just saying, like what if Khan, went to London Spitfire and try to make it like a European super team. Like this is the shit I'm gonna live for. I think that would be.
I don't want people to misconstrue me there as saying that Khan is just straight up better than Reaper as well. I think that Reaper and Calyx are really good within the system of like, heavy team play that makes London Spitfire good. I'm just worrying a bit more about the individualistic metas where you're forced to play a bit more on your own. It's like really heavy poke comps and stuff. Where it's all about putting your Zen in the best position to maximize damage in the team fight and that kind of thing. I think there London Spitfire loses some of what's making them good, which is their snap-second, in-the-moment decision-making and teamwork that they've been honing for months and months and months.
Yeah.
Where are we rating this team then?
I can start. I'll start out.
I think his pizzas are right, but he used a tape measure to measure.
Using Bren's arbitrary ranking system, which is a teaser for the actual ranking video, the preseason ranking video, which is
by
what
the way,
you should all be excited for.
The whiteboard will be making a return.
Yep.
There it is. Yeah.
And they'll even be better this time because me and Bren will be here outside instead of Costa.
I mean, you said like 10 words this episode, Matt. Like, I don't think.
Yeah, because I've been trying to get Chelsea to get the food. But it took a bit. But yeah.
I'm using Brent's arbitrary system. I kind of want to lean towards like a B-, but I don't know if I have the cojones to really.
Oh my lordy, that is a high rating.
I don't know if I have the cojones. Is it
check
cojones?
his PayPal. Check his PayPal.
To B-. Yeah. Because now it gets difficult, because I do think I put Atlanta Reign as B-, and I think these two teams are like could be on par. I think Atlanta Reign and London Spitfire would like compete for the similar spots. But I think I'm gonna go with C+, and I'm going to say that this is a team I'll be watching that I believe could punch upwards.
Wow. You're very high on London. I mean, I can appreciate that. That's some bold stuff.
Well, it's not looking at the players individually. It's like them as a team, their coordination, their potential. I think I'm a bit too optimistic in like how much potential they have left. I really like your point, Josh, about that they figured out the basics already. And I guess I'm a bit too optimistic at like them taking the next step up, which is very difficult. But I could see them perhaps do it.
I'm going to give them a C. I think when you look at them overall in the league, they should be sat at like a C position, but with the potential to shoot higher. And I don't think they really have that much potential to crumble. Could I see the Paris Eternal completely shitting the bed this season? Yeah. Could I see the Vancouver Titans shitting the bed this season? Yeah. Could I see Houston? Yeah. Could I see London? Not really. Because they've had such proven success over a long period of time. They already have the team chemistry structure there. In theory, all of the guys should be able to get along perfectly well, and they've hammered out the team dynamic in terms of like, who makes decisions. If people were going to rub noses with each other. Rub noses? Yeah, is that what they call it?
Rub noses?
Yeah. I don't know. Where you like grate on somebody? Is that what it said? I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, maybe that's a phrase. I don't know. But anyway,
Rub
if you were
noses.
if you were going to grate on someone, if you were going to annoy somebody else in the team with how you are pushing for success, or if you have different expectations, it would have all been hammered out already. So I think they're going to avoid all of those potential problems this year, and that in itself, there almost can only be upsides for the London Spitfire. We already know that they're a pretty decent team. How much better can they get? Very up for debate. But I think even if they stayed at this exact same spot, they'd probably still be, like a C- tier. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give them a C with potential to move up to C+. And I'd love to see them in some of these tournament play-ins, and I would actually love to see them get even further because I'm a big fan of this team. I'm a Hadi stan. I really enjoyed watching this guy's VODs and this guy's play. Like, I think he's a very good main tank. And he's also, it's been so long since we've had a main tank from Europe that has been as well-rounded and as promising for the future as Hadi. North America's had a few, and Super being the best of them, who's really reached elite status. I'm not going to make the claim that Hadi can make it up to that level, but he feels like he has so much potential to be able to make the next step and truly become a good main tank to contest the best Koreans that we have in the Overwatch League.
I'm going to give them a C to C+, and I'm going to go out and say that they make the top 6 in the first tournament. I think the teamwork.
That's not even a hot take.
I mean,
you don't think that's a hot take? I mean, I think that's warm enough to be spicy.
I believe they play the Gladiators, the Outlaws, the Uprising, and the Defiant, and I think they can go 3-1 or 2-2 during that.
Yeah, using
some of their hard and earned teamwork that they got.
Yeah,
and they can squeak out an upset win. All they really have to do with that type of schedule is get one. And I think this team could be top 6 right at the beginning of the season, which I think would be huge. I think it's just, can they keep that pace up for the whole year as teams get better and evolve?
Did you say Defiant?
Yeah, they play Gladiators, Outlaws, Toronto, and Boston.
Okay.
So they have a chance to go 3-1, 2-2. If they play really bad, maybe they get 1-3 type of situation. But I look at that, and with the team that they have, and I look at that and say, yeah, we can go 2-2, 3-1.
I think that's pretty doable. I think I would predict the 2-2 there. I'm not sure which team they would beat. Like, maybe I would predict them over Houston and Boston at the moment, but
yeah. Defiant team preview is gonna be. Oh, Defiant is weird, man. They're weird. They're interesting.
Yeah.
I
Bren?
concur. I think I would rank this team as a high C with potential to go further. I like all the points you guys have made. I thought I was quite high up on this team, but it seems like Johnny is the highest out of all of us.
It does seem like it, doesn't it?
When it comes to London Spitfire, I think the expectations have also just been set at a reasonable place. The bar is set where I think people are just coming into this and they're expecting like a mid-table performance out of them at best. Honestly,
at best.
And you're looking towards the future. Who knows what this team might achieve? All right, that's gonna do it for our 2021 London Spitfire preview. Thanks for watching. Make sure you write a comment. What's your favorite type of pie? You got like
pizza,
apple pie,
pizza pie. Like they
could
call
do.
it.
My
like
pizza pie is missing right now.
I was just going to ask you that. You had a tape measure out to measure it and everything. You went away, and yet you returned pizzaless.
So I'm going to go hunt down my pizza. And thanks for watching. Let me know what your favorite pie is, and we'll see you on Saturday for the next team preview.